Reflect on your experience with sex education. What content were you actually taught? How did it make you feel about yourself and about the people around you? Perhaps you had a first experience like me. My mom took me to the park, sat me down, gave me a bag of M&Ms, and gave me that dreaded talk that every parent hates. Or perhaps you're like many Ohio students who receive sex education based in fear and shame. Now, these programs often use analogies to make students feel devalued or worthless for having sex. They threaten students. If they do have sex, they will be like dirty chocolate, used tape, a rose with no petals, chewed up gum, or a cup of spit. Now, the intention behind these programs is often abstinence, but it's done through fear and shame, which often does more harm than good. Now, when looking at any sex education program, we need to ask ourselves, what is the goal? Is the goal to prevent teens from having sex, prevent pregnancy, and prevent STDs? Well, maybe on the surface, but the real goal is to raise teens that are informed and aware, that are confident in their bodies, and confident in making sexual decisions for themselves, because that's what they're going to need to do. And if done right, this in itself can lead to prevention. I'll show you what I mean. Right now in Ohio, we can't decide how to get there. Ohio laws only have 2 laws pertaining to sex education in the Ohio Revised Codes. The first requires age-appropriate instruction on personal safety, sexual assault prevention, and social inclusion instruction. The second requires venereal disease instruction emphasizing abstinence. Now, there are many parts to these laws, but in researching them, I have found that they are very close to what is federally defined as abstinence-only education, leaving out medically accurate information in favor of presenting abstinence as the only reasonable option for unmarried teens. And as we can see here, students are not receiving comprehensive sex education. 20%, only 33% of Ohio students received all 20 CDC recommended health topics, while the leading state of New Jersey, 86.8% of students received all 20 health topics. Now, if we keep in mind that these 20 health topics recommended by the CDC aren't even a fully comprehensive curriculum, we can see that Ohio students are not receiving comprehensive sex education. So why is that a problem? Why does it matter that our students are mainly receiving abstinence-only education instead of comprehensive? Well, research has shown us over and over and over again that abstinence-only education does not work. It does not delay first sex. It does not lower teen pregnancy rates. It does not lower teen birth rates, and it does not lower teen STD rates. So even if our goal was prevention, the current model that we are using to some capacity in 37 states based on abstinence just doesn't work. Students are curious. They have the internet. And if they aren't getting accurate and reliable information from school, they're going to look for it somewhere else. And that's when these rates increase. In fact, the National Survey of Family Growth found that only 46% of male students and 31% of female students received comprehensive education on where to find contraceptives before the first time they had sex. That means that more than half of our students were ready to have sex before they received the information necessary to protect themselves against these outcomes. And that's why they increase. So if we want to change sex education, we should look at somewhere that's doing it well. The Netherlands are a great example. The Netherlands have one of the lowest teen pregnancy rates in the world, 5 times lower than the United States. And 9 out of 10 Dutch teens reported using contraception the first time they had sex. So what are they doing right? Well, first, In the Netherlands, sex education begins in kindergarten. When students receive these topics early, they can become comfortable with topics of consent, their bodies, healthy relationships. So when the topic of sex is introduced, it isn't as taboo or shameful. And even though teens in the Netherlands are receiving this information earlier, they have been shown to have sex no earlier than teens in the United States. But not only is the timing of education important, but the type of education. They use comprehensive sex education that has been shown to be the most effective at reducing teen pregnancy and birth rates if it presents abstinence as just one option for unmarried teens. But not only that, we see increases in use of contraception among teens, increase in getting regularly tested for STDs, and we even see healthier partnerships and delayed first sex. But most of these are still about prevention. If we can look beyond prevention, we can see that comprehensive sex education can help students develop skills for the physical and emotional and mental aspects of their sexual lives. I'll show you what I mean. Mental health is a critical aspect of sex education. For example, the LGBTQ+ students of Ohio reported experiencing higher levels of bullying, interpersonal and sexual violence, and adverse mental health outcomes than heterosexual peers in every single category. We cannot leave these students behind. If students received comprehensive sex education, it would include things like gender roles, gender expression and identity, and sexual orientation that would help to reduce the societal stigma that leads to harassment and bullying in the classroom. If we can include gender and sexual orientation in sex education, we can help students to become more accepting and aware of what's around them. Another disastrous effect of the lack of sex education is the incidences of sexual assault and harassment. According to the Ohio Incident-Based Reporting System, there were 7,815 incidences of sexual assault in Ohio in 2019, with the average age of the victim being just 19 years old. And if we keep in mind that 2 out of 3 sexual assaults go unreported, this number could be triple. And sexual assault is increasing on college campuses. I personally know too many women who have been sexually assaulted on this very college campus. But comprehensive sex education can be a protective factor against sexual assault. For victims, it helps them gain the skills and knowledge necessary for refusal and to not be vulnerable to coercion, which leads to a reduction in risk-taking behaviors that can lead to sexual assault. For potential perpetrators, it also leads to a reduction in risk-taking behaviors, but through a change in social thinking. The culture of acceptable assault that we have created is perpetuated by a sex education system that does not clearly explain what is and isn't okay. In the classroom, we need training on victim empathy, on outcome expectations, and on correcting rape-supportive cognitions such as rape myths, like she was asking for it because of what she was wearing, or it doesn't count because we were intoxicated. These essential pieces of information are critical as our students are gaining more access to the internet, television, movies, pornography, where they can't decipher what's real and what isn't. Yes, these are tough topics, but not only are they introduced later in sex education, but they tie sexual health and prevention into one. When students are confident in their bodies, confident in the knowledge of what a sexual experience might entail, they can be confident in making sexual decisions for themselves. So, If we want to change the sex education system, we need to change the goal. It shouldn't be about preventing STDs and preventing pregnancy, because as I have shown you, through comprehensive sex education, we can have both prevention and promotion of student sexual health. Not only are students begging for more topics and deeper discussion in the sex education classroom, but research shows us that comprehensive sex education is the most effective at both prevention and sexual health. And finally, I'd like everyone to take one last moment to again reflect on your experience with sex education. What do you wish you would have been taught? What do you wish you would have known going into your first sexual experience? How might you have felt shamed or scared to speak up about a question or identity that you held? And how might comprehensive sex education have changed that trajectory? And for those of you that haven't identified with any of these, I'd like you to take a moment to push yourself into the role of compassion, to step into a neighbor or a friend's shoes who have had these experiences, and push for a world of more confidence, critical thinking, and understanding of others' perspectives instead of less. Thank you.